So curious how that number 1,000 unicorns now strikes you when there were only 39 unicorns back in 2013 and when you coined that term.
I know. Well, thanks for having me, Emily. I'm super happy to be here. Now, I guess I will point out that when we did the analysis in 2013, it was just a US-based list. So the 1,000 list is about half US, half international. So it's really maybe like 500 to 39, but still it is quite an amazing growth in the number of unicorns.
Should a unicorn still be a $1 billion company, or do we need to raise the bar? Should it be a $2 billion company?
I know this question comes up a lot. Look, it's still super rare and very hard to achieve. So yeah, I think what's exciting is that kind of the ceiling has been lifted. So, I mean, when the first analysis was done, there was only one company worth over $100 billion. Now there's a bunch of them, right? So I think the markets for tech companies have gotten bigger, they're global. Sadly, you know, the pandemic has inflicted so much pain on all of us, but it's also kind of like cemented this opening for software and technology to become a bigger part of the scaffolding of our life. So I think tech will continue to grow as a sector, and you know, the composition of the list has changed, and I think that's really good for tech, but it's still really hard. I mean, the probability is still extremely rare if you start a company that raises venture capital for you to achieve a valuation of over $1 billion. And it's also harder than ever to keep it there. And to keep it, I mean, just look at all the turmoil going on in the market right now, like the sustainability of like staying in that zone for a long time is hard.
Does that mean you don't think that private markets are overheated? Because I hear over and over again that valuations are just too high, and there's so much money out there flowing in.
It's both, right? Like I think yes, I mean, I remember a time when companies traded at 5 times revenue, right? In SaaS, it's like hasn't happened in a long time. So the multiples are, you know, are pretty big relative to where they have lived, but a lot of the companies have grown into the valuations because the markets are so big. I mean, I know Meta has been having a really rocky start to the year, but just look at the revenue that company drives. Like, you know, I remember when people laughed at Facebook raising at $100 million valuation, because people were like, how will they ever make money? It's free. No one will buy ads on Facebook. I mean, the amount of revenue they drive is incredible.
So we're looking at some of these private companies that are, you know, Stripe, $95 billion, SpaceX, $100 billion, still haven't gone public. Do you condone the use of the word decacorn? Is that good for the next phase?
You know, it's funny, like in that piece that we wrote, we used like mega unicorn, I think, and decacorn. I was reading, I think,
Centacorn?
Yeah, Crunchbase was using like tricorn and quadracorn, things like that. Like whatever people want to use is cool with me. I didn't expect anyone to use it in the first place. So it's kind of, I know it's annoying to some, but it's useful, I guess.
A whole breed of corns have been born. I got to ask you, you're also the founder of AllRaise. You're one of the biggest champions for getting more women into VC, more women entrepreneurs funded. We just got a really, you know, honestly kind of a depressing statistic that women founders got just 2% of VC funding last year. Why is that, given all of the momentum, the talk, the work that you and AllRaise have done to change this?
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. You know, when we founded AllRaise, we said, look, this is a marathon and we cannot let up, because we have, you know, centuries of bias to undo in not just tech and not just finance, but pretty much in every sector of the economy, in healthcare, in law, in government, in advertising. There's just a ton of disproportionate power held in the hands of institutions that have a lot of embedded bias. So I think we are making progress on the funding side in terms of changing the composition of the VC industry. We have grown it, and I'm hoping that that's a leading indicator and that founders will follow. But yeah, we are not making as much progress. Oh, there's my dog in the background, sorry.
All right, meantime.
We're not making as much progress as we need to for female founders. And so I think it's up to everyone in whatever job they have to examine the ways that they can make a positive difference with who they hire, how they have one-on-ones, how they promote, who they give projects to. There's ways that everyone can have an impact on making it more fair.
So let's talk about having an impact. What trends are you doubling down on in seed these days? Are you excited, for example, about the metaverse, or is that overhyped?
I think the metaverse is just like, what does that mean, really? It's if you mean the metaverse, like, are we all going to be wearing VR headsets and staying in our houses all the time? I think that's, if we're lucky enough to emerge from our caves after this pandemic, I think at least for the next 3 to 5 years, people are going to be more excited to engage in real life than ever before. Like restaurants, hospitality, travel, fashion. I think that's people miss real life experience. I think actually the experience economy and the access economy is going to boom. Now, where people are going to live, both like the unicorns of the future, what countries they're in, what cities they're in, that's going to change. So I do think that the software that actually scaffolds our ability to communicate with each other and the ability to collaborate and work wherever we are, that is going to continue to grow like crazy. And also vertical software, whether it's in healthcare and ed tech, where I think those are categories that if you look at the original unicorn analysis, like fintech was a tiny component of the list of US-based unicorns, and now it's a huge component. So I think we're rebuilding the infrastructure and kind of the rails of all the major categories of our industry. And I think Larry from BlackRock made a comment about how he thinks a big component of the next set of unicorns is going to be energy tech. I hope that's true too.